Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Ever wonder where our Christmas traditions actually come from? It's a story that goes way back, long before Santa and his reindeer. Originally, many cultures celebrated the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. Think of the Romans with their festival Saturnalia, or the Norse celebrating Yule. These were big parties to brighten up the dark winter. So, how did this become Christmas? In the 4th century, the Church decided to celebrate Jesus' birth on December 25th. This date was likely chosen to blend with the popular solstice festivals. It was a smart way to bring new people into the faith. Over the centuries, different traditions merged. Things like decorating trees, giving gifts, and even caroling all have roots in these ancient celebrations. So next time you're hanging an ornament, you're part of a tradition thousands of years in the making. Pretty cool, right? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more fun facts. Everyone celebrates Christmas, but almost nobody knows where it truly came from, because the story we're told, it's only half the truth. Long before Santa, long before Christmas trees, long before the date December 25th even existed, something ancient, something far older was happening. And once you discover the real origin of Christmas, you'll never look at the holiday the same way again. Stay with me, because the real story behind Christmas is more mysterious, more surprising, and more powerful than you ever imagined. Before Christmas became the holiday we know today, before the gifts, the trees, the lights, and the songs, there was a story buried beneath centuries of tradition, religion, and ancient rituals. And today, we're digging it up. Because the origin of Christmas didn't start in a snowy village, it didn't start with Santa Claus, and it didn't even start in the Bible. It began thousands of years earlier, in winter festivals that celebrated the sun, the changing of seasons, and the survival of entire civilizations. From the Roman festival Saturnalia, filled with feasting and role reversals, to the ancient celebration of the winter solstice, honoring the rebirth of light, to the early Christian decision that would change December 25th forever. Every piece of Christmas, the date, the tree, the lights, even the gift-giving, has a deeper, older meaning. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and follow the trail from ancient empires to early Christian communities, to the modern celebrations we know now. And by the end of this video, you'll understand not just where Christmas came from, but why the world celebrates it the way it does, and why its origin is far more mysterious and fascinating than you ever imagined. This is not the Christmas story you grew up with, but it's the story that shaped the holiday forever. Let's begin. Today, we're unwrapping a story as old as time itself, the true, fascinating, and sometimes surprising origin of Christmas. It's more than just Santa and presents. It's a tale woven through ancient traditions, religious fervor, and a little bit of strategic timing. So grab your hot cocoa, snuggle up, because we're about to journey back through history to discover how December 25th became the most wonderful time of the year. To truly understand Christmas, we have to rewind, way back before Christianity, before even the idea of a Christmas existed. Imagine a world where winter was a truly harsh mistress. Days were short, food was scarce, and the sun seemed to abandon humanity. For our ancient ancestors, the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, was a terrifying, yet crucial, turning point. It signaled the sun's return, the promise of longer days, and the eventual rebirth of spring. It was a time for celebration, for feasting, and for hoping the light would indeed conquer the darkness. Across different cultures, people developed unique ways to mark this turning point. In Scandinavia, they celebrated Yule, burning massive logs to symbolize the sun's warmth and bringing evergreens indoors. In ancient Rome, they had Saturnalia, a week-long festival of feasting, gambling, and gift-giving, honoring the god Saturn. It was a time when social norms were turned upside down, masters served slaves, and everyone indulged in merrymaking. Notice any similarities to our modern Christmas: feasting, gifts, evergreens. It's almost like these ancient traditions laid a subconscious groundwork. Now, let's fast forward to the rise of Christianity. For the early Christians, the birth of Jesus was, of course, a profoundly significant event. But here's the kicker: the Bible doesn't actually specify a date for Jesus' birth. Shocking, right? Early Christians focused more on Jesus' baptism and resurrection. Various dates were proposed for his birth, ranging from January to May, and even November. So, how did December 25th become the day? It wasn't until the 4th century, specifically around 336 AD in Rome, that we see the first recorded celebration of Jesus' birth on December 25th, and this is where things get really interesting and a little bit strategic. The Roman Empire at this time was a melting pot of religions, with many still observing pagan festivals, including the popular Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the unconquered sun. Celebrated on December 25th, this festival honored the sun god and the triumph of light over darkness. The early church, in its efforts to spread Christianity, often adopted and repurposed existing traditions. By placing the birth of Jesus, the light of the world, on the same day as the celebration of the unconquered sun, they could subtly reframe a popular pagan holiday. It was a brilliant move, making the transition to Christianity smoother for many new converts. Instead of abolishing beloved festivals, they transformed them. Think of it like a spiritual rebranding, the feasting, the merrymaking, the evergreen decorations, elements from Saturnalia and Yule were slowly, organically absorbed and given new Christian meanings. The evergreen, once a symbol of life enduring winter, became a symbol of eternal life through Christ. Over the centuries, Christmas continued to evolve. In the Middle Ages, it became a major feast day, complete with elaborate church services, caroling, and lavish banquets. But it wasn't always the serene, family-focused holiday we know today. In some periods, it was pretty raucous, almost carnival-like. Believe it or not, Christmas was even banned at one point. In the 17th century, the Puritans in England and America found many Christmas traditions to be too rowdy and too closely associated with paganism. They saw it as an unholy distraction, and for a period, celebrating Christmas was actually illegal. It wasn't until the 19th century, particularly with the influence of Queen Victoria and her German husband, Prince Albert, that many of our beloved modern Christmas traditions really took hold. Albert introduced the German tradition of the Christmas tree to England, and suddenly, evergreen trees became a central part of the holiday. Writers like Charles Dickens, with his timeless A Christmas Carol, helped to shape Christmas into a holiday focused on family, charity, and goodwill, providing a much-needed sentimental reboot after centuries of varied interpretations. And so, from ancient winter solstices and Roman festivals, through strategic Christian adaptation and Victorian sentimentality, Christmas has transformed into the global phenomenon we celebrate today. It's a rich tapestry woven from diverse threads, celebrating light, hope, family, and generosity. So the next time you're decorating your tree, exchanging gifts, or sharing a meal with loved ones, remember the incredible journey of this holiday. It's a powerful reminder of how human beings, across millennia, have sought to find light and connection during the darkest days of the year. What's your favorite Christmas tradition, and did anything in this story surprise you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more fascinating stories, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Thanks for watching, and from all of us here at Flourish Inspired, happy holidays. The Secret History of Christmas. Title: Winter is Coming, the Pagan Roots of Christmas. Focus: Solstice and Ancient Festivals. Key historical events: Yule, Saturnalia, Sol Invictus. The date debate: why December 25th? Early Christian adoption and date selection. Absence of biblical date, theologian theories, Christianization strategy. From riot to redemption, Christmas in the Middle Ages and beyond. Transformation and suppression, medieval feasting, Puritan ban, colonial America. Making it modern, how Santa and the tree took over, 19th century and modern traditions. Queen Victoria, Charles Dickens, Clement Clarke Moore. Santa. Winter is Coming, the Pagan Roots of Christmas. Hey history hunters. You know the feeling, the lights, the cocoa, the presents. But did you know the roots of Christmas don't start with Christianity, they start with fear. Fear of the dark, fear of the cold, and the desperate, ancient hope for the sun to return. Today, we're diving into the pagan origins of Christmas. How Vikings, Romans, and Druids laid the secret groundwork for the most wonderful time of the year. Welcome to the Secret History of Christmas, the solstice survival story. To understand the holidays, you have to understand the winter solstice. For our ancestors, before central heating and grocery stores, winter was a death sentence. The solstice, around December 21st, was the darkest day. If the sun didn't turn around, they all starved. This point of deepest darkness was also the turning point, the promise of more light, so they celebrated. They didn't know why the sun returned, but they were determined to encourage it with noise, light, and massive feasts. This need for survival gave birth to two huge traditions we still follow. Feasting. Animals were often slaughtered before winter to avoid feeding them, making December the best time for a huge meat feast. Evergreens. Bringing pine, holly, and mistletoe indoors was a powerful magical signal. It said, "Look, life still exists, the earth isn't dead." The great Roman party, Saturnalia. Our next stop is the Roman Empire. Meet Saturnalia, a massive, week-long Roman holiday honoring the god Saturn, starting around December 17th. And this was basically Christmas on steroids. During Saturnalia, all law and order went out the window. Schools closed, wars were paused. Slaves were temporarily freed and even served by their masters. It was a time of pure, chaotic joy. Feasting, all week. Gambling, permitted publicly. Gift-giving, especially wax candles and small clay figurines, decorations, garlands, and greenery everywhere. This holiday was so popular, so deeply ingrained in Roman life, that when a new religion arrived, it needed a very clever strategy to gain followers. The unconquered sun. Now, we come to December 25th itself. In the later Roman Empire, this day was officially designated as Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the unconquered sun. This festival celebrated the literal rebirth of the sun, and it was hugely important, especially for Roman soldiers. The early Christians noticed this. They saw a wildly popular, deeply established festival celebrating the light returning. This idea of pagan tradition laying the groundwork for Christian celebration is the massive historical pivot point we need for the next episode. So, the evergreens, the feasting, the gift exchange, they're not modern inventions. They are echoes of our ancestors' desperate, joyful celebration of survival. But how did the birthday of the unconquered sun become the birthday of Jesus? That's the billion-dollar historical question, and we answer it next. The date debate. Why December 25th? Hit that subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss the reveal. And tell me in the comments, which pagan tradition surprised you the most? The date debate. Why December 25th? Welcome back to the secret history of Christmas. We established that December 25th was already a massive party day for the Romans. But here's the problem. The Bible never gives a date for Jesus' birth. So, if the original Christians didn't celebrate it, and the date isn't in the book, how did a Roman sun festival become the universal date for Christmas? The answer involves clever strategy, astronomical calculations, and one very influential Roman emperor. The missing biblical date. Let's look at the biblical evidence. The Gospel of Luke mentions shepherds tending their flocks outdoors when Jesus was born. Historians argue that shepherds in the harsh Judean hills would typically bring their flocks in for the winter, usually before November. This strongly suggests that a birth in late December would be unlikely. Early Christians knew this, and for the first few centuries, the birthday was not a major holiday. January 6th Epiphany, Theophany, focused on baptism. March 25th the date of Jesus' conception. April 18th, May 20th various minor dates. The date that mattered most to early Christians was Easter, the date of the resurrection. The calculation theory, conception to birth. So, how did they land on December 25th? One very popular theory is called the calculation theory, championed by the Roman writer Sextus Julius Africanus into 21 AD. It's based on a belief called the integral age theory. The ancient world had a belief that great prophets and heroes died on the same day they were conceived. Christians believe Jesus died on March 25th, the date of the Jewish Passover. If Jesus was conceived on the same day he died, March 25th, count forward 9 months for gestation. March 25th. April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December 25th. It was a neat, theological package. The Christianization strategy. This leads us to the most powerful, and often cited, theory, the Christianization strategy. By the 4th century AD, Christianity was gaining steam, but paganism was still strong, especially the popular cult of Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, whose birthday was, you guessed it, December 25th. In 336 AD, under the reign of the newly Christianized Emperor Constantine, the Church in Rome officially recorded celebrating the birth of Christ on December 25th. This wasn't a coincidence, it was a brilliant, strategic move. Instead of trying to outlaw the hugely popular Sun Festival, the church simply rebranded it. They weren't saying, "Stop celebrating the unconquered sun." They were saying, "Celebrate the true light of the world, Jesus Christ," on the same day. This made conversion easier and allowed new Christians to keep many of their comfortable, ingrained holiday traditions, merging the Yule logs, the evergreens, and the feasts into a new, unified Christian holiday. So, December 25th is less about an exact birth time and more about two things: elegant theological math, and a brilliant marketing move by the early church to incorporate and redirect popular pagan fervor. Next, we look at what happened after the date was set. How did Christmas evolve from a rowdy religious festival into a banned holiday? Join us for next topic, From Riot to Redemption. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know, which theory do you find more convincing, calculation or conversion? From Riot to Redemption, Christmas in the Middle Ages and Beyond. Welcome back. We've set the date, December 25th, but what did Christmas actually look like in the first 1,000 years after it was established? Hint, it wasn't quiet. If you think your Christmas Eve got a little rowdy, you haven't seen anything yet. From massive public parties to public backlash, today we cover the medieval chaos of Christmas, and the shocking period when celebrating it was completely illegal. The medieval feast and Lord of Misrule. In the Middle Ages, Christmas wasn't just a day. It was a season, 12 days of Christmas running from the 25th through Epiphany on January 6th. The entire community focused on the feast. Kings and nobles held enormous banquets, but common folk also celebrated, often invited to their lords' homes. Christmas wasn't primarily a family holiday, it was a community festival. Echoing the Roman Saturnalia, medieval Christmas often featured a lord of misrule, a commoner, or even a beggar-crowned king for the season. This person led the festivities, playing pranks, demanding drinks, and temporarily inverting the social order. Historians describe this period as loud, drunken, and sometimes quite violent. The church was often displeased, but the people loved their raucous celebration. The rise of religious reform and the ban. By the 16th and 17th centuries, the religious landscape shifted dramatically with the Protestant Reformation. A group called the Puritans believed the Church of England was still too Catholic and too influenced by pagan ritual, and their favorite target, Christmas. The Puritans hated the celebration. They saw no biblical justification for December 25th, viewed the feasting as gluttony, and the decorations and merrymaking as relics of Catholicism and paganism. This dislike escalated to a total ban when the Puritans gained control of the English Parliament during the English Civil War. They passed a law in 1647 that outlawed Christmas. Shops stayed open, churches were expected to hold regular services. Anyone caught celebrating was fined or even arrested. This ban was enforced for years in England and, crucially, carried over to the New England colonies in America. America, the unholiday. If you traveled to Boston in the 1650s, Christmas was essentially a normal workday. It was an unholiday. This ban lasted in Massachusetts until 1681, and even then, Christmas remained a minor, often ignored, day for decades. By the time of the American Revolution, Christmas was often just a minor feast day for German, Dutch, and Catholic families. In fact, Congress held its sessions on Christmas Day because it wasn't considered an important holiday. So, how did we go from a banned workday to the central holiday of the Western world? That transition belongs entirely to the 19th century. The chaotic, riotous Christmas of the Middle Ages met the somber suppression of the Puritans. It needed a total reinvention. It needed family focus, sentimentality, and a few new, powerful mythical characters. Join us for our final episode, where we meet the two great historical figures who single-handedly gave us the Christmas we know today, Queen Victoria and Charles Dickens. Don't forget to subscribe. Tell me in the comments, if you lived in the 1650s, would you risk the fine to celebrate Christmas? Welcome back to the final episode of The Secret History of Christmas. We've traveled from pagan feasts to political bans. We're now in the early 1800s, where Christmas is largely forgotten, especially in America. To resurrect the holiday, three major things had to happen. It had to be moved indoors and focused on family. It needed a sentimental purpose. It needed a new mascot. Today, we meet the Queen, the author, and the poet who gave us the modern Christmas. The Queen and the Tree. We start with Queen Victoria. In 1840, she married her German cousin, Prince Albert. Albert missed his German Christmas traditions, and in 1848, an illustration of the royal family celebrating around a decorated Christmas tree, a long-standing German tradition, was published in the Illustrated London News. The image spread like wildfire. Suddenly, the Christmas tree, a Germanic echo of the pagan evergreen ritual, became the ultimate symbol of domestic bliss, respectability, and family focus. It quickly crossed the Atlantic, transforming parlor rooms across America and Britain. The sentimental savior, Charles Dickens. The Christmas tree gave us the look. Charles Dickens gave us the heart. Victorian England was suffering from severe class divides and industrial poverty. The historical chaos of Christmas meant there was no single holiday focusing on charity or family. In 1843, Dickens published A Christmas Carol. It was an instant, colossal success. Dickens didn't invent Christmas, but he essentially rebranded it. He fused the medieval themes of feasting and goodwill with a new, sentimental morality. The story shifted the holiday's focus from a loud, outside community party to a quiet, inside family event focused on generosity. The idea of bah humbug became a social sin. The rebirth of St. Nicholas. What about the big guy in the red suit? His origins are rooted in a 4th-century bishop named St. Nicholas of Myra, known for his charity, but he was largely forgotten in America. He was resurrected by a single poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, better known today as 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, written by Clement Clarke Moore in 1823. Moore transformed the tall, serious bishop into the chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf we know today. He established the reindeer, the chimney entry, the toy sack, and the laugh. Decades later, illustrator Thomas Nast solidified this image in the pages of Harper's Weekly, creating the iconic look that Coca-Cola later popularized, but did not invent. So there you have it. Christmas is an extraordinary patchwork. The evergreens are pagan. The date is Roman and theological. The sentiment is Victorian. And Santa is a 19th-century poem. It's a testament to human history and our enduring need for light, hope, and connection during the darkest time of the year. Thank you for joining me on this entire journey through the secret history of Christmas. If you enjoyed this series, please share it, like all for videos, and hit that subscribe button. And for one last time, what part of the modern Christmas do you think has the most surprising origin? Let me know in the comments. Happy holidays! The Christian foundation, the Nativity. The primary and most fundamental root of Christmas is the Christian celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, the Nativity. Meaning, the word Christmas itself is a shortened form of Christ's Mass. For Christians, the holiday marks the incarnation, the belief that God became human in the form of Jesus. The date December 25th. Historically, the Bible does not specify Jesus' birth date. The Church in Rome first formally celebrated Christmas on December 25th in the 4th century around AD 336. There are two main theories for this date selection: theological calculation, the belief that Jesus was conceived on March 25th, the date of the Annunciation, and believed by some early Christians to be the date of his death, which places his birth exactly 9 months later on December 25th. Christianization strategy, choosing the date to coincide with the popular Roman festival of Dies, Natalis Solis Invicti, birthday of the unconquered sun, and other major winter festivals. By aligning the birth of Jesus, the light of the world, with the celebration of the returning sun, the Church made conversion smoother for pagan populations. Ancient winter solstice festivals, pagan roots. Many of the holidays' non-religious customs stem from ancient midwinter festivals, which celebrated the returning light after the shortest day of the year, the winter solstice. Tradition, feasting and merrymaking. Origin festival. Saturnalia Roman, December 17th to 23rd. Description: a week-long festival honoring the god Saturn, involving public feasting, gambling, and a temporary inversion of social roles. Masters served slaves. Decorating with evergreens. Yule, Norse, Germanic, and ancient cultures. Bringing pine, holly, ivy, and mistletoe indoors symbolized life enduring the darkness of winter. For Christians, this was reinterpreted as a symbol of eternal life. Wreaths and kissing boughs. Roman calends. Wreaths were exchanged as tokens of goodwill in ancient Rome. Mistletoe had separate Celtic, Druid associations, later merging with Christmas tradition. Yule log, Yule, Norse, Germanic. A large log was traditionally burned to honor the gods and ensure the return of the sun, feasted over for the duration of the burn. Gift-giving, Saturnalia. The Romans exchanged small gifts, especially candles and figurines, during Saturnalia. This practice was later shifted to New Year's Day and then merged with the feast of St. Nicholas. The 19th century rebirthed modern roots. After a period of decline and even banning, notably by the Puritans in the 17th century, Christmas was reinvented in the 19th century into the domestic, sentimental holiday we know today. The Christmas tree, the modern tradition, was popularized in Britain by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert after an 1848 illustration showed the royal family gathered around a decorated German-style fir tree. Santa Claus. The figure of Santa Claus is a fusion of traditions. Saint Nicholas of Myra, a 4th-century bishop known for his generosity to the poor, inspiring the tradition of gift-giving on his feast day December 6th. Sinterklaas, the Dutch version of Saint Nicholas, brought to New Amsterdam, New York. Clement Clarke Moore, his 1823 poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, created the modern image of a jolly, flying, chimney-descending elf. Focus on family and charity. Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol 1843 played a major role in redefining the holiday's spirit, shifting the focus from public, often rowdy, feasting to private, family-centered celebration, repentance, and charity. In summary, Christmas is a unique celebration where the spiritual narrative of the Nativity was strategically placed upon the existing framework of winter solstice celebrations and later polished and standardized by Victorian domesticity. The Roman roots of Christmas are significant and primarily involve the timing of the holiday and the customs inherited from two major Roman festivals, Saturnalia and the Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, birthday of the unconquered sun. When the early Christian Church began to formalize the celebration of Jesus' birth in the 4th century AD, it did so within the context of the powerful and popular Roman calendar, leading to a deliberate or organic merging of traditions. Here are the key Roman roots of Christmas. The date, December 25th. The selection of December 25th is the most crucial Roman legacy. The date was already a major religious and civil holiday in the later Roman Empire. Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, birthday of the unconquered sun. The festival. This was a popular holiday dedicated to the Roman sun god, Sol Invictus, celebrated on December 25th. It marked the winter solstice, the Julian calendar's date for it at the time, celebrating the moment the sun symbolically begins to return, and the days grow longer. The strategy. The early church, notably in Rome, likely placed the celebration of Jesus' birth, the light of the world, on December 25th to either directly compete, provide a Christian alternative to a widespread and popular pagan festival, facilitate conversion, allow new converts to retain their midwinter festive period, simply shifting the focus from the solar god to Christ. The Dies Natalis Solis Invicti immediately preceded the start of the new year, making the entire period festive. The customs, Saturnalia. Many non-religious customs we associate with Christmas derive from Saturnalia, an ancient Roman festival in honor of the god Saturn, the god of farming and the harvest. Dates. Saturnalia was typically celebrated from December 17th to 23rd, just before the 25th. Feasting and general merrymaking. The Roman festival was characterized by a joyous, carnival-like atmosphere. All work and business were suspended for the holiday, and public gambling was permitted. Role reversals. One of the most famous aspects was the temporary loosening of social restraints. Masters would serve their slaves, who were given temporary freedom and allowed to engage in general revelry. This chaotic, topsy-turvy atmosphere may have influenced the raucous nature of medieval Christmas celebrations, where a lord of misrule was often appointed. Gift-giving. During the later days of Saturnalia, specifically the Sigularia, Romans exchanged small gifts, often including wax candles, cerai, and small clay or pottery figurines, sigularia. This custom became integrated into the larger Christian winter season. Decorations. Although evergreens were common across many pagan cultures like the Norse Yule, the Romans would decorate their homes and temples with garlands and greenery during Saturnalia and the Calends New Year's Day. Roman element. Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, December 25th. Modern Christmas parallel. The fixed date of Christmas. Saturnalia, December 17th to 23rd. The tradition of public feasting, excessive celebration, and merrymaking. Saturnalia gifts. The exchange of presents during the holiday season. Role reversals. Lord of misrule. The practice of electing a mock ruler for seasonal revelry, which survived into the Middle Ages. Essentially, The Romans provided both the calendar placement and the cultural template for a noisy, joyful midwinter festival, which the early church successfully adapted for Christian observance. The pagan roots of Christmas are diverse, stemming primarily from ancient European midwinter festivals that celebrated the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. These traditions were absorbed and repurposed by early Christians as the faith spread through the Roman Empire and Northern Europe. The central theme of all pagan midwinter festivals was the fear that the sun would not return and the subsequent relief and celebration when the days began to lengthen again after the solstice around December 21st. This universal human need for light and warmth forms the core of many modern Christmas customs. Key pagan festivals and their influence. Several distinct regional festivals contributed elements to the modern Christmas tradition. Roman Saturnalia, December 17th to 23rd. This was a major week-long Roman festival honoring Saturn, the god of agriculture and time. Many of its customs strongly parallel modern holiday traditions. Feasting and revelry. Saturnalia was a time of boisterous public celebration, gambling, and widespread merrymaking, setting the tone for the general festivity of the Christmas season. Gift-giving. Romans exchanged small gifts, particularly wax candles cerae and clay figurines sigularia, a clear precursor to the modern tradition of exchanging presents. Role reversal. Social restrictions were loosened. Masters would often serve their slaves temporarily. This tradition influenced the medieval custom of appointing a lord of misrule to preside over the chaotic Christmas celebrations. Norse, Germanic Yule, Jul. Celebrated by Germanic and Norse peoples, Yule was a 12-day festival around the winter solstice. The Yule log, a massive log, was traditionally brought into the home and ceremoniously burned, often for 12 days. The burning symbolized light and warmth and was meant to ward off evil and ensure the return of the sun. This custom is still referenced in holiday treats and songs. Feasting. Yule was a major feasting holiday, often involving the sacrifice of animals, ensuring a large supply of meat and drink for the darkest part of the year. Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, birthday of the unconquered sun. This was a major imperial festival celebrated on December 25th in the later Roman Empire, dedicated to the sun god Sol Invictus. The date. This is arguably the most significant Roman influence. By the 4th century AD, the early Christian church strategically adopted December 25th for the birth of Jesus, the light of the world, effectively supplanting the pagan sun festival. Pagan rits of Christmas decor. The decorations used today often have clear pre-Christian meanings. Evergreens, pine, fir, holly, ivy. Bringing evergreen trees and boughs indoors was a widespread pagan custom, signifying that life endured even in the dead of winter. It provided a visual assurance that the vegetation would return. The Christmas tree, while modernized by Prince Albert in the 19th century, its root is the Germanic, Yule practice of decorating an evergreen tree. Holly and ivy. These were often used by the Celts and Druids as symbols of life. Holly's red berries were linked to the blood of renewal, and its sharp leaves were thought to ward off evil spirits. Mistletoe. This plant was held sacred by the Celtic Druids, who believed it had mystical healing powers. Its association with peace and kissing evolved later but has roots in ancient reverence. The choice of December 25th as the date for Christmas was not based on historical records of Jesus' birth. The Bible does not specify a date, but rather on a combination of theological calculation and strategic alignment with existing Roman festivals in the 4th century AD. Theological calculation. A leading theory among early Christians was the belief that great prophets and figures, including Jesus, lived a perfect number of years, meaning they were conceived and died on the same day. This is known as the integral age theory. The date of death or conception. Early Christians often fixed the date of Jesus' crucifixion and therefore his conception around the time of the Jewish Passover, commonly recognized as March 25th. The birth date. By counting forward exactly 9 months, the normal human gestation period from March 25th, the resulting date is December 25th. This theory provided a neat, self-contained theological explanation for the date, establishing a sacred timeline from conception to birth. Strategic alignment. Christianization. The other, and arguably more influential, factor was the strategic decision to align the Christian holiday with powerful and popular pagan festivals already celebrated in the Roman Empire. Sol Invictus, The most significant Roman festival influencing the date was the Dies Natalis Solis Invicti birthday of the unconquered sun, which was celebrated on December 25th. This festival honored the Roman sun god, Sol Invictus, and marked the moment the sun symbolically began its return after the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. The connection, by placing the celebration of Jesus, often referred to as the light of the world, on the same day as the return of the literal sun, the early church provided a comfortable, familiar framework for pagan converts. It allowed them to maintain a midwinter celebration while shifting its spiritual focus from the solar god to Christ. Saturnalia, the famous Roman festival of Saturnalia, a period of feasting, gambling, and merrymaking, was celebrated from December 17th to 23rd. By placing Christmas immediately after Saturnalia and on the day of the Sol Invictus festival, the Church effectively claimed the entire existing winter holiday season for Christian observance. The official recording of Christmas on December 25th first appeared in a Roman calendar around AD 336, during the reign of the newly Christianized Emperor Constantine, solidifying the choice for Western Christianity. The real birth of Jesus, according to historical analysis, is a topic where historical consensus differs significantly from traditional Christian dating. While the Gospels provide a narrative, historians and biblical scholars use external evidence to estimate a probable year and season, though the exact date remains unknown. Here is what history and scholarship say about the birth of Jesus. Historical analysis places Jesus' birth several years before the year 01 AD, the start of the Common Era, which is meant to mark his birth. This seemingly paradoxical dating is due to a calculation error made centuries later. Dionysius Exiguus error. The modern dating system BC, AD or BCE, C was calculated in the 6th century by a monk named Dionysius Exiguus. He miscalculated the final years of the reign of King Herod the Great. King Herod's death. Both the Gospel of Matthew and the historian Josephus link Jesus' birth to the reign of King Herod the Great, specifically before the massacre of the innocents. Historical consensus places Herod's death in 4 BCE, before the Common Era. Therefore, Jesus must have been born sometime between 06 BCE and 4 BCE. The Star of Bethlehem. Many scholars also associate the Star of Bethlehem with specific astronomical events that occurred during this window, such as a rare triple conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in 7 BCE or a comet sighting in 5 BCE. The unknown date and season. While the year is likely 6 to 4 BCE, the day and month of Jesus' birth are unknown. Why December 25th is historically unlikely. The Gospel of Luke mentions that at the time of Jesus' birth, there were shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Luke 2:8. In the cold, rainy winter months of Judea, shepherds typically brought their flocks into protected corrals or sheds. Having flocks out in the fields suggests a time of year when the weather was milder. Most scholars suggest that late December would have been too cold for this practice, making a birth in the spring or fall more probable than midwinter. The choice of December 25th, as noted in historical analysis, the date of December 25th was chosen not for historical accuracy but for theological and strategic reasons in the 4th century AD. Theological symmetry. Early Christians sometimes calculated the date based on the belief that Jesus was conceived on the same day he died, March 25th, placing his birth 9 months later. Pagan alignment. The date aligned with major Roman festivals, most notably the Dies Natalis Solis Invicti birthday of the unconquered sun, allowing the early church to repurpose popular pagan celebrations. Roman records. The census. The Gospel of Luke states that Joseph and Mary traveled to Bethlehem because of a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. Luke 2:1-3. Quirinius's census. Luke specifies this census took place when Quirinius was governor of Syria. Historians confirm a census took place under Quirinius, but it occurred in 6 CE Common Era, years after Herod's death, 4 BCE. Historical discrepancy. This creates a significant chronological issue. The Nativity narrative ties Jesus' birth to 2 events that occurred 10 years apart: Herod's reign and Quirinius' census. Scholars generally conclude that the Gospel author may have included the detail about the census to historically anchor the event and explain why Jesus, who grew up in Nazareth, was born in Bethlehem to fulfill prophecy, even if the exact timing was conflated. In short, historical records suggest the birth occurred between 6 BCE and 4 BCE in Bethlehem, but the exact day and month are not known, and the traditional December 25th date is a later religious and cultural tradition. Christmas originated primarily from the early Christian Church in the Roman Empire, which sought to establish a fixed date to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, strategically integrating it with existing ancient pagan winter festivals. Primary roots of Christmas. The holiday is a blend of theological development and cultural assimilation, making its origin multi-layered. Theological roots. Roman Empire, 4th century AD. The most direct origin is the decision by early Christian authorities in Rome to formally designate December 25th as the date for the Nativity Christ's Mass. The date selection. The Bible does not specify Jesus' birth date. The Church chose December 25th in the 4th century for two main reasons. Theological calculation. The belief that Jesus was conceived on March 25th, the traditional date of his death, placing his birth 9 months later. Strategic alignment. The date coincided with the popular Roman festival of Dies, Natalis Solis Invicti, birthday of the unconquered sun, allowing the Church to repurpose a major pagan celebration for Christian worship. Pagan and cultural roots. Europe and Rome. Many of the customs and the festive nature of the holiday were assimilated from existing pre-Christian midwinter celebrations across Europe. Saturnalia, Rome. This Roman festival, December 17th to 23rd, contributed traditions of feasting, merrymaking, gift-giving, and decorating with greenery. Yule, Norse, Germanic. Germanic tribes celebrated Yule during the winter solstice, contributing traditions like the Yule log and the use of evergreens, which symbolized life enduring through winter. The winter solstice. Across all these cultures, the celebration was ultimately rooted in the astronomical turning point of the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, and the rejoicing over the sun's return. Therefore, Christmas as we know it today was originated in the Roman Empire as a Christian holiday, but its traditions and timing are rooted in ancient European pagan winter solstice festivals. Christmas was originated as a Christian holiday to celebrate Jesus' birth in Bethlehem, but the date, customs, and symbols were heavily influenced by Roman and European pagan festivals. Essentially, it is a religious celebration rooted in Judea, formalized in Rome, and culturally enriched across Europe.